should.
They use the.
Be disappointed if we don't. I said we're going to. I'll be disappointed if.
Well, welcome, everyone. It's 6 p.m. Welcome to the October 16th, 2023 District 882 Monticello Regular Board Meeting. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. The agenda is up on the big screens for anyone who needs to see it. And we're going to move on to item number 3, approval of our tentative agenda. For those that don't know that joined us this evening, our agenda is tentative when it's posted on Fridays until we make it the agenda for our meeting on Monday. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Melissa Curtis, seconded by Casey Root. All those in favor of approving the agenda as listed this evening, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. Motion passes 6-0. We don't have any citizens' comments this evening. Moving on to fiscal stability. This is the consent agenda portion of our meeting. It consists of the approval of minutes from the preceding meeting, personnel matters, which is a spreadsheet that's provided to us by the Human Resources Office, and a summary of our current budgetary issues. All of us received that well in advance and have a chance to ask any questions of any of our administrators beforehand. So I'd like to entertain and approve a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I just would like the word budgetary issues, and I just would say it's like budgetary expenditures.
Expenditures.
And transactions. And
I'm
things
sorry,
like
I misspoke.
Just to make sure that that wasn't,
Our monthly obligations.
yeah.
So moved.
Second.
By Melissa Curtis, seconded by Casey Root. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda as listed, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, please say no. Motion passes 6-0. Moving on to item number 6, safe and healthy culture. We have our 2 student representatives with us this evening. I'd like to welcome them to the podium to give us a briefing. This is Jack Geislinger and Gabby Cruz-Longley.
Okay. Hi, first off, I'm Gabby. This past month we had homecoming and it went very well. We had 4 days of Pet Fest and they all went very well. The student body had great participation and all students were invested very well. The student council did a great job of hosting the homecoming dance, of decorating the school, and they did a great job of doing coordination in a different way this year, and I think the school was very happy with it, and everybody had a lot of fun.
Over the past month, we started to incorporate flex into our schedules. So that's a period in between second and third hour where kids get to pick a teacher to go to work on like schoolwork for that class or another class. All grades use it differently, so the 9th graders use it to really get in touch with what's going on at the high school and to kind of figure out what's going on. And then the 10th graders use it to as they get into the harder classes, they need a little bit more of that work time. And then the juniors really need that work time because they have a lot of CIS or AP classes they can take and their classes get a lot harder. And then the seniors use it, they kind of use it as they need. So some students are taking a lot of college and hard classes and others aren't, but they kind of use it for work time on whatever classes they need.
Next, we have our fall activities report.
It's a little bit closer.
Most sports are in sections. Yes. So, boys and girls soccer. Girls just finished their season on Tuesday versus Big Lake, and boys are in their section play, and they just had a game on Saturday where they won 4-1, and they're heading to Orono on Tuesday for finals. Girls swim is still going. They just won True Team, and they're advancing to True Team State. Boys and girls cross country, they're on Tuesday, Chisago Lakes is holding conference, and then on the next Thursday, not this Thursday, the 26th, we'll have sections at Princeton.
The football team lost last Friday, but we have our last season game on Wednesday this week before we move into sections. Girls tennis, the team lost in the second round to Maple Grove, and they have moved on to individuals. Volleyball sections start on the 25th. I think their last game is this week. And then the high school musical practices have started and have been going pretty smoothly, and the first performance is on November 17th.
We've also had specific class meetings with faculty and their students to talk about specific grade level focus. For underclassmen, it's more about working through challenges and how to show resilience as they enter the high school and when to do the right thing. And upperclassmen, it's more so asking them to lead the underclassmen. And overall, it's just showing the students where they're at the beginning of the year and celebrating a first grade 6 weeks.
And then this past week, we had the PSAT that we hosted, and there was around 80 juniors, I believe, over that amount that took it this week, which is a record number for the high school. And then as we look forward to the future, we're looking at the end of the quarter on November 3rd. Which I think a lot of students are looking forward to. It's been a long quarter.
Well, thank you, Jack and Gabby, for that good report. Do we have any discussion or questions from any of the other?
Thanks for all the detail.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome.
And I want to confirm, you said the PSET, that's the PSAT, right?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I understood that correctly. And you said we had how many students?
There was 80.
Oh, that's really wonderful. Anybody else? Well, thank you very much for your report this week. You're welcome to stay for the remainder of the board meeting, or if you have other things you'd like to leave. It's not easy, to be a teenager and get up in front of all of us old people, so you guys are doing a great job. Thank you. We'll see you next time. Moving on to item number B under safe and healthy culture. I'm going to give just a little bit of introduction as to how this item ended up on our agenda this time. It's all good. So we have a policy committee that meets monthly here in the district, and in the course of discussing other policies, this issue came up about parking lot fees for students at the high school. And so we talked about it at least twice, if not more, in policy committee. And then we decided that the issue being somewhat unresolved and there were still some questions about it, we thought we would bring it to a work session for the whole board, and we did that. Had a lot of input from both of our high school principals, also had input from our Director of Business Services, Tina Burkholder, on those parking lot fees, how they're collected, where they go, what we do with them, that sort of thing. And that's how we've decided to bring this forth for a vote this evening. So I just want to give a little bit of background. It's otherwise a little bit of an unusual thing to have come up on our agenda. So at this point in time, I'd like to open it up for anyone that has any discussion about the parking lot fees.
I would like to.
Casey, go ahead.
So why are we here casting a vote evaluating whether we should continue to charge students a parking fee? I myself am surprised that there would be such defiance to help alleviate students of a burden. Apoplectic response of mocking a board member who suggested we move away from what is essentially a double tax. However, even after there's been quite a few discussion internally, both in committee meetings and workshop sessions, and even over debates that reviewed there is yet to be determination on where the money goes or to what it's assigned to, here we are. I won't go over all the items due to time, but will instead keep this brief and only list a few items. Mainly, this has been a debate of cost versus control. A common defensive position of, if we take it away, it will be hard to bring back in the future, not we would lose X or Y. Just that students, parents, and community members may recognize the fee is only in place because Other schools also charge it. If it was about cost, why do you not charge everyone? If it was about cost, why do you not charge every vehicle every day? Why is there never a discussion on why it should be raised to address the new amount needed? While there was ample debate back and forth, few examples arose between what is deemed acceptable and many examples of when it is not acceptable, and two baseline statements. Yes, we must charge. It is okay because we charge less than other schools. We will not survive financially otherwise. Or, no, we are unable to charge. There's no possible way. It is not fair. Below are a few examples of who currently is charged, who we claim it is okay. Students who drive to school, who help alleviate bus congestion. Students who are not eligible to ride the bus due to bus location. Students who are unable to use the bus services due to sports activities. However, examples where it was argued that it's impossible to charge or manage: staff parking during school hours, administration parking, parking after school, graduation, conferences, hockey practice, school board members, visitors, and many others. If it was about cost, the extra funds we would collect would be quite robust. I imagine our current scenario, the rich men north of Richmond would be proud to exploit a captive market and drive a forced revenue stream. I must ask, is this who we are as a board? Luckily, this vote only has two options, yes or no, and we can display to the public which side we are on. By voting no, you're recognizing as a board, our position is not to take advantage of students or charge taxpayers to access what has already been paid for. We will not selectively determine to apply a fee which has no merit. We agree that we should not charge fee to those students which help reduce bus congestion. This is also an opportunity to alleviate the stress a student may have with the $100 back in their hands, and they can solely determine whether it's toward class trips, sports, or as they choose. By voting yes, you recognize as a board our position is that we should take advantage of students in this position and double charge taxpayers for access to what is already paid for. We will selectively determine to arbitrarily demand a fee because we can. That we should charge a fee to the students who help alleviate the bus congestion by providing their own transportation. Join me in voting no to show that it is wrong to take advantage of students, or you can vote yes. Take the position that there is nothing wrong with charging for parking under the guise it is okay because we charge less than other schools. Let's remind you, pilfering less than someone else is still pilfering. Calling it a fee changes nothing. I think we should vote no.
Is there any further discussion?
I think it would be best in the future if we yes for a certain reason or no for a certain reason.
I also agree
It's
that,
your opinion, so that's, and don't say I'm voting yes for a reason that you think I'm voting yes for.
whether we vote yes or no, what your stance on it is your personal opinion. That doesn't mean that that's where we stand individually, regardless of where each one of us votes.
Just like to remind all the board members to turn their microphones on when you speak, please. Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to. Yes.
Oh, second.
We have a motion from Casey Root to bring the question, and seconded by Melissa Curtis, sorry. I'm wrong there. So we're going to do this as a roll call vote. All those in favor of keeping the parking fee, respond aye. And all those opposed, please respond no. Branson?
Aye.
Sieben?
Aye.
Hegle?
Aye.
Curtis?
Aye.
Root?
No.
Ziebarth, aye. Motion passes 5-1, sorry. Moving on to academic procedures and updated student activities handbook, we have Mr. Gary Revening, our activities director from Monticello School District, has a number of issues on our agenda tonight, and we're pleased to welcome him to the podium.
Okay, thanks for having me tonight. First one, we took a look at our academic policy for students in activities, and I shared this with the policy committee a few weeks ago. So Gavin has that up on the screen right now, but basically academics. To be eligible to participate in activities at the high school, students must be on track to graduate to maintain eligibility for activities. It's the same policy that the high school league has. That's what we have at Monticello High School. And then want to emphasize that we're education-based activities program, which means school comes first. You have to take care of business in the classroom before you can be involved in our activities. A student who receives 2 or more Fs at the end of the semester will be ineligible for the following 9-week period. The student will not be allowed to practice or compete unless a plan has been put in place with school administration, or by the end of the next quarter, the student is passing all of their classes. Grades will be monitored and approved by the activities department. Students who are struggling with their academics may be put on academic probation. We had 2 athletes this fall on academic probation from second semester last school year. One continues to excel right now as a student, or has started to excel. All their grades are above a D, which is amazing to see. We're very proud of that student's, the direction he's going academically. And I did have to pull the other student from her sport right now because her grades were not up. It doesn't happen very often that we have a student that's out for activities that has 2 Fs. Like 2 students this fall were in that situation, being on probation. Started something new. You scroll up a little bit, Gavin, or scroll down. Academic support after school. We just started that. It's something brand new at the high school. We're using golf tournament money that was fundraised to help students right now at Monticello High School that just need some extra help. So anyone, we're checking grades weekly, and it was hard to get started because the first couple weeks of school with fall sports, obviously the first couple weeks we don't have school, then school started and very few grades were in. So the last 2 weeks now, we've had academic support after school. Started with like 80 students the first day, immediately got it down to about 20 because of missing assignments. And it's been sitting at about 15 students that come each day. When they come, they still get to go to practice after. They come for a half hour after school just to spend a little bit of time doing their homework. And it's definitely helping, but I'll admit that it's been a challenge first at the beginning of the school year here, first semester. When winter sports start, it'll be a lot easier with grade checks and things like that. So we'll do grade checks. You scroll down again. Added to the policy is grade checks this year and progress sheets. So like winter sports, we'll do it at the beginning of the season. They'll go to their teachers and turn in their sheets so we can see where they're at academically, and then we'll monitor that throughout the season. It was just hard to do that in the fall when school hasn't started yet. That makes sense. So appeals on eligibility, we've always had this. Multiple students take advantage of it. They may have a couple Fs. Then they come and sit down and ask for an appeal with high school administration, and we look at this. Is the student on track to graduate? Has the student registered for summer school to make up credits? Are there any extenuating circumstances? And what's the plan to make up the credits? If we come up with a plan, we do everything we can to get them eligible. And again, like I said, they might be on probation, but we find a way to get them in activities because we know that helps them at Monticello High School. And like I said, we started with about 80 that were struggling a little bit early in the year. It's already down to a manageable number because they don't want to miss out on their activities, and it helps them bring their grades up. So this is going into the coach's handbook, and it's also going into the student activities handbook. Any questions on the new academic policy?
I have a question just on clarity. At the top under academics, it says we're an education-based activities program, but a student who receives 2 or more Fs at the end of a semester. So basically that statement is saying we're allowing 1 F still continue on there. Can we get some clarity as to
Why?
why and how that's broken down? I know in a previous discussion you mentioned that at the start of school there's a test they take or a class, and then they won't get a grade for another month and a half.
Yeah, so the 2 or more Fs is meant for at the end of a semester. And the reason why we went with 2 is because we could have a senior that's passed all their classes, they're on pace to graduate. And an example that I gave the policy committee had a student that was in Spanish 3 because their parents wanted them to take their 3rd class, and they do not need that class to graduate, and they failed it. And maybe it got late into the semester and they can't drop it, so they already have 1 F, so that's an F. So there's things that come up, and that's why you have to look at each individual student's case to determine if they're going to be eligible or not. That is an example of Spanish 3. They didn't have to take that. They could have taken a different elective, and they ended up failing. And so we had a plan in place, and that person was still eligible.
Yeah, that was the clarity I was looking for.
Yep, thank you. All right.
Any other questions or discussion?
Yeah, I got one question for you, Gary. Where it says, in that same paragraph, the student will not be allowed to practice or compete unless a plan has been put in place. Is the only way to put a plan in place is to go through the appeals process?
No, that's a really good question. So, for example, what I tell people when they come to fall sports registration or winter sports, if I'm up speaking, I address it in the auditorium, or I have my head coaches address it. Anyone who's failed a class needs to touch base with the activities director so we can look and see what's going on here. How can we help them be successful? So, number one, our first goal is to get them to graduate from Monticello High School. And then the second one, we want to get them involved in as many activities as possible. So to just kind of look at and see where they're at. With 450 kids playing sports, it's hard to monitor everything on my own. This fall, I'm very fortunate to have an intern, and about every 2 days, he's looking at student grades for me, trying to figure out who needs some academic support and how can we get them that help. Does that answer your question?
I would summarize it by saying that it's, constant monitoring of the grades and then pulling students in that meet the criteria in order to put successful plans together. And like it says in there, I mean, it's a plan that between, the activities department, the student and the family. And so it's an ongoing process that we're going to continue monitoring, and we're proud to bring something new and more enhanced forward here today.
I think that's a good point, Superintendent Olson, that we maybe haven't had as robust a plan as we do now, and that dovetails quite nicely with our district strategic plan. Academics is number one, and we're living it. So be a little hard to hear for some folks, but I think that's really important at this point in time. I had a quick question about, there are occasionally students at the 7th and 8th grade level that participate, and are they subject to this as well?
I would reach out to the middle school activities director to see where they're at, but we haven't had issues in the past with middle school students, but yeah, they would have to be passing their classes too. It'd be, the same thing would apply if they were going to be in our high school activities.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And where it says grades will be monitored and approved by the activities department. So the grades themselves, it's not reliant on the students to submit their grades. I guess my question is more of, anyone slip through the cracks and have a whole bunch of bad grades and you guys miss it, or?
Yeah, we're trying to prevent that. It's not easy, I'll be honest with you, but that's why we added the piece, another section on grade checks where they'll go around, and then we're putting the responsibility on them to fill out all their grades, have their teachers initial it. And once we get into the school year here, it's hard now in October, but in December, January, February, it'll be a lot easier because the teachers will be able to sign off where they're at with their grades, and then we'll know exactly who needs help. So right now, just to be honest with all of you, it's a lot of, hey, I'm missing one assignment, I need to get that turned in, and then my grade's going to be a B or an A, and just kind of checking them individually to say, okay, yeah, it's just one thing, get that done, thank you, you're going to be okay. So we need to get through and get through all the information to find out who really needs help, struggling, and that's what we're going to try to do here as we move into the school year. A little more accountability with the grade checks.
I think that's a great word, too, that you use, is accountability, and when students start taking accountability for themselves, so that whole dialogue that Gary just shared would be part of John Hattie's longest research indicator of student success, and that's being owner of your success in school and knowing what you're doing in each class is really, really a big part part of a student's educational and their career after is knowing where you're at in your performance and no matter what job you have. So I think you've put some amazing things as part of this policy, this big picture, and I know that you have lots of procedures and detail that you have in place that's in action working right now. And I just want to thank School Board Member Sieben too for bringing this forward as an idea and then seeing the Monticello High School administration work an idea into an actionable plan is really commendable.
Yeah, I'll just add, it's hard to put it in writing because there's so many different variables and everyone has their unique story, and just trying to add consistency. And basically the changes that we made were all positive changes to hopefully help keep them eligible for their activities and the fun things that they want to do at Monticello High School. So basically just trying to add layers of support.
Gary, can you talk about how this was shared with the families of the student athletes?
Well, when it gets to the point where they're really struggling, where you see the Fs, then we reach out to the parents, and if they still want to participate in activities, they need to come in. And we set up a meeting with one of the principals and myself for them to come in and come up with a plan. So we need the parental support for sure.
You share this, are you planning to share this with all families so they know preemptively what the policy is, like at the beginning of this?
Yeah, and that's why we're adding it now into the handbook as well. Yep, so they should be able to see that.
Any other questions about the academic procedures? Okay, and I think we're moving on then to the student activities handbook.
All right, so the activities office has always had a coaching handbook and a student activities handbook, and I'll be honest, they haven't been updated in a while. Craig Grahams was getting his admin degree last school year, and he took a look at it for me and updated some of the information as far as who's in the conference, what the fees are, contact information, and he went through the details, which I really appreciated. And then we looked at, okay, what do we need to add for this year? So there's 4 things that kind of jumped out that I put on this document to share with you today in the coach's handbook that I want to bring to your attention before you vote on the handbooks. And the first one is our district document for adding a sport on page 4. So this is already, it's not a new document. It's just one. We haven't had to add a sport at Monticello High School since boys and girls lacrosse, and we're on year 10, I believe, of lacrosse. So it's been 10 years since we've added a sport. It's probably going to come up very soon here with boys volleyball getting approved by the Minnesota State High School League. So I had to try to find where is our school district document. So I found that, and I would like to add that now into the coach's handbook and into the student one as well. So when they have questions, they can see that. So as you scroll up, when do we add a sport? Well, first of all, there has to be student interest. What are our participation numbers for this activity? How many of the students attend Monticello High School? That seems like a strange, might have to scroll down a little, Gavin. Might seem like, or up, I'm sorry. Might seem like a strange question, but right now, club volleyball, there are players from multiple schools in the area, and parents will say, hey, we have enough interest for a team. Well, how many go to Monticello? Are they Monticello students? Are they Elk River, Becker, Big Lake, and so on? So we need to get some of that data. How many levels would we need to provide at this time? What are the participation numbers at the middle school? How long has this activity even been a club? So we need to get that data to know if it's going to sustain itself. Sometimes we have a certain age group, like a certain year of students, a pocket that comes through that says, oh, we really want this activity, and then there's no one else behind them to sustain it. Okay, that's happened with some of the fine arts activities, and then we realize, well, we can't really add it because we don't have a way to sustain it with student participation. Okay, then we look at, does the conference currently have it? Would we have someone to compete against? And our Mississippi 8 conference requires half of the schools to participate before it becomes a conference activity. So would it be a conference activity? And finding out who currently has this program in our conference. And we meet as ADs every month, and those are the things that we discuss. Is it approved by the Minnesota State High School League activity? Would we have section and state opportunities? You have to look at gender equity. Does adding the activity still allow us to maintain our Title IX guidelines? Would we be able to find a coach and cover the cost of this position? Do we have facilities and so on? So these are all the questions that have to come forward before we would add a sport at Monticello High School. So I wanted that in the handbook as well. Again, this is already board policy. I just wanted to share that with you tonight. Any questions on that?
Outside of the boys volleyball that you mentioned, are there other sports that you think are on the horizon?
Not at this time.
Okay.
We get asked to do a lot of different activities, but right now that's the only one that's been approved at the high school league level. Okay, and the other piece was when to add a club or a group at Monticello High School. And again, there's criteria for that. I get approached by students on a regular basis when they want to add something. So to add a club, just to find out, okay, what's the purpose of the club? Share the student interest in the club. How does the club benefit Monticello High School, our students, our community, and so on. You can see the different questions there. But basically, to have this so the students know, because they'll come in and say, hey, what do I need to do to add a club? So to be able to hand them this document will be very beneficial. We also have some groups that aren't looking to be an official club at Monticello High School. They just want a safe place to meet. And we have multiple groups that just come and meet, and oftentimes, I'm not even aware they're just meeting before school. Whether it, right now I could think of some church groups and things that come in the morning, and that's great. They meet before the day gets started. Groups typically do not make announcements at the high school. Just our approved clubs we're making announcements for them. Any questions on clubs or groups then at the high school?
Is there a minimum amount of students needed to qualify for a club to be produced?
That's a really good question. I would say no. Right now I have a student asking me if we would start a speech club, and I'm looking at the possibility of maybe co-oping with some neighboring schools. For example, Becker and Big Lake each have 1 or 2 students asking them as well. So we're looking at, is it possible or feasible to come together to provide the opportunity for the students?
I think that's a good way to, and you've said this a couple times, Gary, but we take each case on an individual basis because if you just have a number that doesn't use our problem-solving ability as well. But since my time here, we have had to say no too, because if we use some of those other questions and we're not able to support it, we do from time to time have to say no. That's not to say that we're not going to problem-solve first before saying no. So it's just every case we need to dive in and figure out if it's a feasible club and we can problem solve to make it work for kids.
Okay, the third thing I added to the handbooks was the academic policy that we already discussed. And then the last one that I talked to the policy committee on was promoting middle school athletes. This has been in place at all 13 previous years. I've been activities director, but we've never had it in writing. So I wanted to add that to the handbook so it's very clear. When we move someone up from the middle school, oftentimes we'll get a parent that'll reach out and say, hey, I'd like my 8th grader to play 9th grade volleyball or whatever the sport might be because they feel they're capable to play up one level. And that's not what we do as a school district. So when we move up middle school athletes, it's because our participation numbers are low at the 9th grade level, so we need some help. Or an athlete has the athletic ability to start on the JV or contribute on the varsity team. We do have gifted athletes that sometimes are ready to help our varsity programs, and we want to be able to move them up if that is the case. And then we have a promotional form that the middle school AD, the high school AD, the head coach, the parent, and the student all need to sign off on agreeing that it's a good decision. So it's definitely a decision that is made by everyone that's involved in the student's life to see if it is a good thing and if the student's ready and mature enough to handle the stress of moving up to the varsity level or the high school level. And then the process is always initiated by the head coach and approved by the high school activities director. It is not initiated by a parent. Any questions on that part? Okay, so that's my summary for the handbooks, and I think we're looking for a motion to approve the handbooks tonight.
I want to thank you, Gary, for the work that you put into this. One of the goals we had as a board about a year ago was to get all of the handbooks kind of beefed up and spruced and polished and buffed. And I think all of the principals have all been working really hard on their handbooks. And I think the lion's share of the work you put into it this year, and I think all of that is now in place to make it a little bit easier in the future. We'll just be doing touch-ups basically with that. So with that said, I'll entertain a motion to approve the academic procedures, the high school student activities handbook, and the coaches and advisors handbook.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve by Casey Root, seconded by Melissa Curtis. All those in favor of approving the academic procedures, the Monticello High School Student Activities Handbook, and the Coaches and Advisors Handbook, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say no. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you, Gary. Moving on to, we have a trip request for the Monticello High School volleyball team, and Mr. Revenig is going to give us a briefing on that as well.
Okay, I apologize for taking up the whole agenda here tonight, but.
Our special guest.
Yeah, our coaches would have loved to have been here tonight. They're actually playing in North Branch right now, and it's for the conference championship. Both Monticello and North Branch are 7-0 in the conference, so the winner is the champion tonight. So it's a big night. This pumpkin classic up in Moorhead, we went to this last year. It was approved by the school board. We went over all of this. I almost forgot to bring it forward. That's why it's coming to you so late. But I'm basically looking for approval from the exact same trip that we took last year. So real quick, going through it. Why are we going to Moorhead? Well, the volleyball team can play in 3 tournaments throughout the season. I pay from the activities office. We pay for the fee for them to play in these invites. And honestly, last year we couldn't find a third invite. We were trying, and then we found this one up in Moorhead. They wanted us. It was a competitive tournament. So we went up there. It was a great experience, and the families wanted to go up again this year. I will tell you, next year, we've already been invited to a Metro tournament that's a showcase tournament for Class 3A opponents. We'll be going to that, so this will be the final year that we're going up to Moorhead. But why? We want to prepare for the postseason, which starts next week. This will be a JV and a varsity trip. We're going to run into Totino Grace, and they have a strong program, Ricori, along with others, including Wilmer, Moorhead, Osseo, and Wadena. So we're getting ready for the postseason, and we're going to build program cohesiveness with both varsity and JV teams attending the tournament, create some memories, and obviously have fun up in Moorhead over the 2 days. So, travel. We agreed last year that we weren't going to take a bus. The parents are driving there just like they would if it was a non-school trip. The parents have agreed to drive, or they have given permission for their child to ride with someone else on the way up there. So transportation, they will be on their own for that. And we also have a transportation form that was created last year, which gives them permission to ride with someone else. Hotel accommodations, the Booster Club is paying for the hotel rooms. They're all staying, obviously, in this, the team is staying at the same hotel. There's 4 players in a room. We also have a lodging form that the parents needed to fill out. Hotel accommodations include a free breakfast. Coaches obviously are going to be there supervising the athletes, and the coaches are going to share a room, which will be paid for through the volleyball fundraising account. And again, the Booster Club is paying for the girls' rooms. Room curfews will be required, and coaches will go together to check each room to ensure all the athletes are accounted for, and they will have a team curfew. Here's the lodging form, same thing that we presented last year to the school board. As far as food and meals, Friday night, the Booster Club is feeding the team. Saturday, breakfast is included at the hotel. Families are bringing snacks throughout the day on Saturday. So I believe we play 2 matches on Friday, 3 on Saturday. And then athletes will be on their own for lunch and dinner on Saturday on their way home. So we'll be at Moorhead High School. I haven't seen it yet. Parts of it is brand new. I'm not sure if the whole thing is open yet, but I think the gym is, so that's pretty exciting. So again, they're leaving Friday morning to head to Moorhead, arriving up there by 1:30, about a 3-hour drive. Cost breakdown, I already went over all of that with you. And as far as other notes, it's over MEA break, so they're not missing school. They, again, leave, it's this Friday, and they're playing Friday and Saturday, and it's just our JV and our varsity teams, approximately 18 players that are going. We'll have 3 coaches there, our head coach, varsity assistant coach, and our JV coach. Any questions on the volleyball trip this week?
I think it's a good thing. Timing wise, it's really close. So you mentioned earlier, you normally bring it up at an earlier board meeting. So would this be known in August or September, or where's the planners presenting every year in September on this?
Yeah, so last year when we went, the next week I was immediately sent a contract to please come back. And I said, yes, we'll come back. So at that time, I should have went right back to the board immediately. So that was my error.
I'd actually like to take credit for that, too. Chair Ziebarth has recently asked that we use some more of a presentation style template. And so this is for all of our administration, but we will no longer be using that one pager that was really inept at sharing any details. And so we've had everybody use presentation mode, but I just maybe haven't clarified that. So I think it's a great move on the part of the board to make sure that we really get those details. And when you go somewhere, it's a big thing. We're representing Monticello, and what the coach shared with you and how you presented it is exactly what we're looking for. So I think the process is now getting in place formally, but we've informally been trying to do that for about a year now. I think most of you would recognize that you've had to present and then present when you come back from places. So on is that old one-pager. I think your department's usually the one that uses it. Gary, just get rid of it. We've got to thank our communication specialist, Ebony Moore, who's created a template for all admin to be able to use. So the template will be the foundation, and then feel free to let coaches spruce it up how they want, but we'll have a foundation for everybody. It's done already.
Thank you. So I'm looking for approval for the girls volleyball team to head to Moorhead this weekend.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Jamie Sieben, seconded by Casey Root. All those in favor of approving the volleyball, girls volleyball trip as presented by Coach Revenig, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say no. Motion passes 6-0. Congratulations, Gary. And I do think by having this standardized procedure moving forward, these are our precious children, and we want to make sure all the legal issues are taken care of, that we've dotted every I and crossed every T. And I thank Devaney Moore and Superintendent Olson for getting on board with that, too, that we'll have a really nice procedure in place, that everybody will understand how it goes, and we'll follow through with an after-action report. And I just think we've spruced it up a little bit. So thank you very much, Coach Revenig. And then we have Coach Revenig again with his annual Minnesota State High School League.
Yeah, I just like standing up here, so.
Making you nervous.
Yeah, no, the last thing I have, I'm going to put them both together. So the Minnesota State High School League has a foundation, and legislation allows us to take the taxes from the state tournament ticket sales and give that back to member schools. But in order to get your share of the money, you have to officially apply for the grant and bring that to your local school board. I have always done that. This is the first year they both are going to take place here in November. So the first one, Form A, is just to help offset money for free and reduced students that are participating in activities. So I totaled up how many we had. We had over 100 students that participated in activities last year that qualified for free and reduced. Every school that turns theirs in, they'll take the total number of students, divide it by the pot of money. I believe last year we received approximately $30 per student, so we received several $1,000s back which is definitely appreciated, and that money goes to our business manager and into the general fund. So applying for that again, and we need a motion. And then the second one, Form B, is for health and safety. Again, a pot of money. Last year, I wrote the grant. You guys approved it. We received money to train staff on CPR and AED training, and we did that in August. So now I'm asking the high school league for a portable defibrillator that I would like to put out at our softball complex. I currently have 2 portable defibrillators right now, and last spring we left one at the baseball concession stand, and our trainer always had the other one with her. I would like to leave one at the softball concession stand now if we're able to get this grant.
So we have a resolution, Part A and Part B. Is there any discussion of this before we move into the reading the resolution? Any questions by board members?
On the Part B, the limit was 2,000. Were there other grants out there that we could take advantage of, or that was the only?
Yeah, that's it. And I think there's approximately 300,000. So to get 2,000 would be a big get with
Okay.
300 schools applying. Yeah, that was one of the things you could apply for. So that's what we're going to try to get.
Okay.
Any other questions for Mr. Roening?
Yeah, do we have other AEDs? Is there one at the football stadium?
Yeah, yep. Yeah, we have AEDs located obviously throughout the school, all of our schools. We currently have one that's in the storage room out in the stadium, football storage room, so that's permanently in there. And then our other ones are portable ones that we bring to activities. There's one at the middle school by the pool already, so the gyms already have defibrillators. It's just when we're out and about, and the reason I left one at baseball the last couple of years is that's the farthest away from the high school in case something would happen.
Any other comments?
Who can access the one at the football stadium?
All the coaches have a key that will get them in there.
That they carry with them throughout the game? They have the key
Yeah,
with
they
them
have their
all the
keys,
time?
yep. Yep, and if it's a varsity contest, one of the high school administrators would be there. Plus, the trainer has a key that they would be able to get in there as well.
And did you say the trainer has one on their person all the time too?
In the spring, they do, yes. In the fall, I believe they do as well.
Okay.
But for sure in the spring, because our events are spread out all over the campus.
If something happened then on the track, they would need to get over to the stadium side?
Yeah, like in the fall, I don't think they always have it with them in the fall because there's one out in the stadium, which they could get to quickly if something happened on the turf field or at the track. So it's right in the building, it's in the room past the concession stand. So it's right inside the stadium.
Good.
Yeah, you bring up a good point is if someone didn't have their keys or didn't grab them, we change to a lock where there's a pad, pin pad, and a key. So you can use either or. Just a,
I think as long as we are confident that there will be a key on site at all times, then we're good.
Yeah, we're confident. If we leave it out, I'm just worried that something could happen to it, and
Yep.
they're very expensive.
So we have Part A and Part B. These are resolutions. They don't have to be moved, just read, and then we'll take a vote afterwards. So to
Entire
be
thing.
read.
Resolution of Governing Board supporting Form A application to Minnesota State High School League Foundation. Whereas the Minnesota State High School League Foundation was formed to provide support for Minnesota high school youth to participate in athletics and fine arts. Whereas the Governing Board of Monticello Public Schools, number 882, recognizes the value of student participation in extracurricular activities. And whereas the Minnesota State High School League Foundation is offering grants and funding to assist schools in recognizing, promoting, and funding extracurricular participation by high school students in athletic and fine arts programs. Therefore, be it resolved that the Governing Board of Monticello Public Schools, number 882, supports the school's application to the Minnesota State High School League Foundation for a Form A grant to offset student activity fees.
All those in favor of supporting the resolution as read by Member Sieben, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say no. Resolution passes 6-0. Now we move to Form B.
Resolution of School Board Governing Board supporting Form B application to Minnesota State High School League Foundation. Whereas the Minnesota State High School League Foundation was formed to provide support for Minnesota's high school youth to participate in athletics and fine arts. Whereas the Governing Board of Monticello Public Schools number 882 recognizes the value of student participation in extracurricular activities. And whereas the Minnesota State High School League Foundation is offering grants and funding to assist schools to provide seminars, training opportunities, or support for specific school functions for students, faculty members, officials, and others who are involved in athletic and fine arts programs. Therefore, be it resolved that the Governing Board of Monticello Public Schools number 882 supports the school's application to the Minnesota State High School League Foundation for a Form B grant.
All those in favor of supporting Form B as read, resolution as read by Member Sieben, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, please say no. Motion passes, resolution passes 6-0, and thank you.
Thank you.
Moving into item number G, first reading of policies. We have Mr. Rob Daniker, our Director of Human Resources, is going to give us a little briefing on policy 533, 34, and policy 709.
Thank you,
Welcome,
Chair.
Mr. Daniker.
Thank you, Chair Ziebarth, members of the board, Superintendent Olson. So tonight, as Chair Ziebarth prefaced, we'll be reviewing first reading, preparing first reading for each of these policies. Policy Committee, Chair Ziebarth mentioned earlier, tonight's meeting, Policy Committee meets once per month and works through an agenda of items. And so, for instance, earlier this month, we went through 5 policies and brought 3 forward for our first meeting tonight. And the 2 that not move forward, we'll do again in November and see if they're ready. So the first policy for tonight that we're looking at is our wellness policy, policy number 533. The purpose of this policy is to set forth methods that promote student wellness, prevent and reduce childhood obesity, and assure that school meals and other food and beverages sold and otherwise made available on the school campus during the school day are consistent and applicable to minimum local, state, and federal standards.
Is there any questions from any of the board members on policy 533? Mr. Daniker? Okay.
Continuing on, policy 534 is our school meals policy. The purpose of this policy is to ensure that students receive healthy and nutritious meals through the school district's nutrition program, and that school district employees, families, and students have a shared understanding of expectations regarding meal charges.
Anyone have any questions or comments for Mr. Daniker? I do. I just would like to have you discuss, one of the things that I think is a little bit of a misunderstanding in the community is that they've heard a lot that school meals are free. And sometimes people are confused when we say they have outstanding lunch balances. Can you address that?
Yeah, and so what you're referring to, Chair Ziebarth, was change in state statute, which made the first offering of breakfast and lunch, so one of each per day, free to every student. Your concern is well-founded because second servings are not free. And so those are charged at the adult rate for each of those meals, breakfast and lunch. And then also a la carte items, snack bar items and things like that do not count as a meal among themselves, and so those would be charged separately as well.
Thank you. And can you also confirm that any outstanding lunch balances that were in place at the end of last school year were not wiped out by the legislative decision?
Correct, yeah. We continue to have ongoing balances that are in arrears, and we are hoping through timely payment and also strategic use of potential angel fund balances that could, over time, hopefully zero those out as best as possible.
Thank you. I just think there's still a little lingering confusion on the part of the community on what that meant in terms of the balances that students may have still had or what we're charging for now. So I think that clears it up pretty much.
Correct. And also within the policy, we've outlined at what point a balance would be in arrears, and then what the communication process would be if that occurred as well.
Anyone else have questions on the meal policy? Mr. Daniker? Okay, moving on to policy 709.
Right, and the third and final policy for first read tonight is policy 709, student transportation safety policy. Fairly straightforward. The purpose of this policy is to provide safe transportation for students and to educate students on safety issues and the responsibility of school bus ridership. Along those lines, just noting, and perhaps preemptively, that the big change here was amended state statute specifically regarding training around student transportation. So that's where we saw a lot of the recommendations in updating this policy from MSBA.
With that policy, I just like, you have the heavy lift here tonight, Mr. Daniker, thank you. But also like to give credit for the hours of work that Jamie put in with our educational partner, Joel Kunkel, and his team. So it's great to see, your stakeholders coming together and really trying to make a policy with more training and more standard operating procedures as part of that policy. So great work done.
I'd like to echo that, too. This is the first year we've ever had a transportation liaison from the board, and I think Member Sieben has set a very high bar and has a big pair of shoes if she ever leaves that role. You've done a lot of work with that, and a lot of it is invisible to the public, but I really thank her as well. So.
Yeah, I would also second Kathy and Eric's comments. Policy to go through this and add these items, make sure all the text is in the proper orientation, so we can get it passed, so.
That end, I just want to recognize Devney Moore, our communications specialist for the district as well, who does a heavy lift on this also.
I don't have a question, but kind of in line with what you're saying too. We, like was said earlier, we get a chance to read through all of these policies ahead of time, and I like to read them trying to find an issue or imagine an issue and find a way to fit through a loophole or something. And this one's pretty bulletproof, so thank you. Very impressive.
Thank you, Mark. So this is not an action item, so this is just first read. So if there's any other comments for Mr. Daniker, otherwise, thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Moving on to collaborative connections. We do every month. We are so blessed to receive donations from the community for various programs and things within our district. And this month was no different than some of the other ones. We have a large amount of money that's been offered to us in donations, and we can never say thank you enough. So we do have a resolution, and I'm for acceptance of these gifts, and Mr. Olson is also going to give us a little bit of information.
Yeah, before the acceptance is read, just a pay tribute to our two donors. The first donor wanted to remain anonymous. That does happen from time to time. It's just we want to honor through the process of any donation, honor the request of the donor themselves. And so this $5,000 came in for Monticello Middle School personal care items for students in need. And then the second donor was okay to be acknowledged, and that is the Christensen Group Insurance. And that one is $625 going to the Magic Closet, which is also students in need, but at the Monticello High School. So we bring those forward, and we are ready for the resolution.
Therefore be resolved by Monticello School Board Number 82 to gratefully accept the following donations: anonymous $5,000 for MMS personal care items and Christensen Group Insurance $625 for the Magic Closet.
All those in favor of accepting the donations as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say no. Resolution passes 6-0, and thank you to our anonymous donor and the Christensen Group Insurance Company. Moving on to teaching and learning, we have some of our principals here with us this evening, and we have Matt Colwell and Lori Hansen from the Monticello High School that are going to present their building goals presentation for us this evening. Welcome to the podium, Mr. Colwell and Ms. Hansen.
Well, good evening and welcome for having us. We are just here on behalf of the high school. We're going to talk about some goals. We have lots of goals, larger goals and some secondary goals we'll talk through, and then strategies too. We don't want to get too far into it without at least recognizing we're proud of our team. We're proud of the people we have working with us. An example is Coach Revnig over there that is up here talking about supporting kids with their academics and doing all the things he does. I don't know that there's a lot of ADs in the state that dig in the way he does. Sitting next to him is Mr. Reeves, who's working hard at the ALP and kind of digging in over there and starting to bring that together with online programming. So it's all students, 9 through 12. And we, of course, are proud of our student center staff, our office staff, and, of course, all the teaching staff as well. So everyone's working collectively, and we don't want to get too far into it without recognizing the whole team. So as I talked about, just having a number of goals. One of our primary goals, obviously, is to get students to that graduation date, walking across the stage or getting their diploma. That's one of our primary goals, and it is something that we are pushing towards for all students. And in order to do that, we have to work with our staff, work with all students to keep reflecting on how we get them there, the process to how we educate them. And a lot of that includes just looking at best practices. This year in particular, we're spending a lot of time as a high school staff digging into our teaching practices across the board, all classrooms, growing professionally, reflecting on what we do, and understanding the power we have collectively, and kind of garnering that power to learn from each other process. We know we got a lot of highly qualified professionals in our building, and we don't want to work in silos. So we intentionally tried to bring a system together where they can learn from each other and meet with people they don't necessarily always or haven't always met with. That is one of our primary goals this year. At the bottom there just mentions 94%. That's a goal for all students. Doesn't matter their background, where they're coming from, their proficiency in any particular area. We want to get every group of students as we break down a graduating class to 94% success rate in graduation. That is one of our primary goals. So as we move forward, just in thinking about what we're working with, our current reality, so to speak, part of a big job of what we need to do is evaluate our programming, evaluate the needs of how we educate, and of course, where our students are at and what they specifically need. So like I mentioned, the ALP and online, they're part of our program. All the students that attend the high school, we need to know what they're struggling with, what their biggest needs are. Obviously meet those needs as best we can. So with regards to how to do that and how we get to a framework to achieve those things, a lot of that is revolving around our MTSS process, which we're in second year, mostly our second year of really digging into that at a pretty good level. Tier 1 refers to all of the teaching that goes on across the board in all classrooms, and that's, like I referenced, just what we're doing with our teaching staff is looking at best practice instruction, all staff. And the Tier 2 gets to the students that need extra support. They're not necessarily students on an IEP, but they're students that struggle for some particular reason. So our student center staff are digging in, along with the help of people like Jason Welch and Cindy, to get them the interventions they need so that they can be successful as well. And so that's part of the strategy and the framework behind it.
And as Matt talked about, this just breaks down what he summarized a little bit in regards to just the MTSS is our guide work. That's what's going to provide us the plan to meet kids. So we're really diving deep. Quarter 1 is wrapping up very quickly. We're looking at a number of data points from attendance, academics, behavior, tardies, to really look and see graduation, students that are on track for graduation, or after 1 quarter who are already off track for graduation. So we're using a wide data pool to really look at these 2 tracks. So as Matt summarized earlier, our whole Tier 1 baseline good instructional practices for every student in every classroom. And then once we define those kind of needs, once we set our early warning systems, then we're going to really dive deep with this group of people that are looking at what do we need to backfill the skills that students need to be successful. Some of it, they just might have to learn how to manage their academic day better. They might need specific content support. So that's really where we're doing a heavy lift right now with our students and our staff, is to identify how do we backfill and teach, put in interventions that teach skills so that we get students back on track sooner to work towards that 4-year graduation rate. Here's some of the strategies that we're going through. We've tried to align a lot of our work that is happening. So we've got a lot of diverse people working within the high school, student center staff, social workers, counselors, career pathway coordinators. We've got a lot of time and resources that we're truly trying to put all of it focused towards what do we need. So you heard our two students up here, student reps, talk about flex. We're trying to use that very intentionally to provide small group work, or maybe it's, we're going to start a flash, freshman level academic study hall for a small group of students that need really intentional academic support. So we are using some of the peer tutoring that is coming with Tony Chido's program and the youth internship program. We're trying to look at the career and college readiness. So everything that's going on in the high school, we're really trying to be intentional that it answers one of our strategies, which aligns to our MTSS, which aligns to our district or our building goal. I'll pause there. Any questions? It's a lot of information, a lot of acronyms. I know.
I like flash. Awesome.
A student gave that to me. I can't take credit. A senior gave that to me.
Tell them again what it is.
Freshman level academic study hall. It's taking that flex time twice a week and identifying students that really need some support in the data points that we determine, which we're going through right now, and giving them targeted skills to help them be successful.
Next couple of slides just speak to some of the things that, as staff, we will be doing. And some of it's review. We've already mentioned a few things, but digging into best practices and understanding what it actually looks like, how we implement it, and why we would implement it. Some people like to hear more research. They like to hear the background, what it actually does. Some people are more focused on how do I actually implement this in our classrooms. And then some will just ask the question, well, how do I do it? What do I need to actually do? So we try and meet all the different personalities where they're at and give them some of the tools they need to succeed. Sometimes as adults, we get a little caught up in talking about things we can't control, and so we've always tried to intentionally circle back to talking about and focusing on things we can control. That's a little bit easier said than done sometimes, but just to realize what we have here as resources with our students in our school, in our building, what can we do and what do we control on a day-to-day basis is part of our conversation quite frequently. Flex is a time during the day when students are going to staff, but it's also the time we use during the school day when our cohorts are meeting, and so staff are meeting in small groups frequently throughout the school year, Tuesdays and Thursdays, to work on their professional development, so that's happening. Of course, they're reflecting on practices and conversing and just discussing best practices, and then, of course, trying things and coming back and reporting to their cohort how it went. And the strategy is to not do everything perfectly at once and take big steps, but to just incrementally, small steps, find different ways to keep improving. And we met with our leadership team after school today, and just to get a good idea of how it's been going, because Wednesday we have professional development on the early dismissal day, and we needed to know specifically what message our whole staff needed to hear from the perspective of a cohort leader who just has 8 people they're leading. So we were able to dial into specifically a good plan that we're going to roll out on Wednesday with the leaders' feedback to make sure it's as meaningful as it can be. Just a few more things here. Like I just mentioned, leadership team and their input, and kind of giving them the license to be a leader. It's hard. They mentioned a couple of them. It's not natural and easy for some of them to direct or kind of guide their colleagues. They just want to be a colleague sometimes and not be too direct with what needs to happen, but we're trying to encourage them to show some of that leadership, to which they're doing, and it's going well. EduClimber is a program we're trying to implement now. It's something that keeps track of a number of data points. At the high school, we don't always have as much data as we would like. with regard to standardized testing and student scores. Students take more tests at younger levels. It happens almost yearly, multiple times, and so we're trying to find different ways to gather more data, whether it's attendance data, behavioral data, minor office referrals, and the academics. And so that is something that we're learning about, and again, incrementally trying to grow and learn and implement as we go. And as I mentioned, we're short on data sometimes with the high school, but it is something we're pursuing to try and do better.
And then tying in the vision of a learner and thinking through our students. So we really wanted to talk about students who are resilient people, resilient learners, resilient people. And so these are some of the things that we currently see in some of our students. So we don't want to stand up here and make blanket statements about 1,400 students in the various programs, but these are some of the things that we see from students or the feedback we hear from our staff. And so we know that students come to us with a lot of diverse backgrounds and a lot of, just a lot of needs. And so we really want to look at what do we do to meet them where they are to set them up for school success. So as we think about teaching kids how to be resilient, an example is on Wednesday this week is a half day of school. Our student center team, social workers, counselors, people, Ben Lundquist, who works with us very closely, said we need a little bit of that onboarding. And we had talked about the timing to put some of this in place. We're going to have a freshman level seminar. So students won't be in their academic classes on Wednesday. They're going to go through 5 stations that day. And really it's high school transition 101. We chose to do it at this time because feeling like at the beginning of the year, they had too many things that they were trying to worry about, too much information coming at them. Our group decided they want to let them just get into high school, and this would be a really good time where they're going to learn about resources, strategies, how to manage the day. What does it mean to be in charge of your own grad credits? And do you know what a quarter credit versus a semester credit? So really just helping them on board and giving them some controls, some skills, some tools to be a successful student. And then there's a lot of, again, data that our group is going to collect from that point, help students set some goals, and then we are going to revisit what this looks like at the start of second quarter again to give them some mile markers for them to work through, but also let them know where are you going and what can you do and are the habits that you have now. So when we look here, that's one example of where every freshman will go through this half day on Wednesday. And this is what the language that we use with our kids. So you heard Matt talk about what does it look like in terms of instruction. Well, by our best practices, we want more student engagement in their own learning. And so progress toward grad requirements, the skills to be self-advocate, and then attendance, even when it's hard. We know that this gets to be the grind of, you heard Jack and Gabby talk about it. This is a tough stretch. When it's hard, what do we do? What do we rely on? And then who do we have as resources within the building? So that's been an example of our kind of where we're going with our resiliency in terms of building within our vision of a student. Is this you?
Yes, just to kind of summarize and kind of wrap it up here, just with regards to what staff will be doing with regard to resiliency and the professional development. It's just that self-reflection piece, the collaboration. We want to walk the fine line of maintaining expectations for students, yet supporting their needs, and there's a balance there. That bullet there that says pursue struggling students, sometimes that's literally and figuratively, trying to help students get to what they need and get to where they need to be. But it's not giving up on some of those students or overlooking them. It's actually looking for them more intentionally and then supporting them based on their separate, or differentiated need. And then, of course, lastly, you don't get real far if you don't have a good connection with students. And so we need all students to at least have one adult that they can connect with and their advisor, and then obviously many more that they're going through from class to class, and make sure they feel connected and safe and welcomed at the high school as well. Any questions?
It was an excellent presentation, thank you. More of a comment, I like to see things connected across the district. We talk about that a lot, Mr. Olson and I do, when we do our strategic planning. And I think we just heard a really great example of that from Mr. Revenig, talking about having the students engage and take responsibility for their eligibility. And then you stress that. So I just think that's really a positive thing that we can share with other parents as well, as we're trying to grow our students and their accountability and responsibility. They're not just empty vessels that we're pouring education into. So, thank you for all your hard work on that.
I have two questions, one for you guys, one for Eric. So, good presentation, I like it. Earlier this year, it was about April, there was talk of a teacher evaluation form and setting goals, and then those teachers are going to complete that this fall. Have we looked at those goals to see how they align?
Yes, all staff have looked at that. We've presented it. It's going on in all of the buildings. As far as I know, at the high school, it's fully implemented. All staff have their own individual professional goal. And for the staff that are on an evaluation cycle, that's something that they're sharing with an administrator. And the language for the teacher evaluation plan, kind of the rubric or descriptors as to whether or not they're fully implementing it, if they're partially implementing or emerging, that language is the same language we're using or building into our cohort with regards to best practice.
Okay, so you're integrating them together. And then my question for Eric that ties into this is, there's discussion on, struggling students and who needs help. One of the questions I've had for a while is a org chart, organization chart, so we can visually see how many staff we have in which location, who's helping who needs more support. Are we able to set a date on when we would actually have that org chart so we can evaluate that to see basically who needs more assistance?
Mr. Daniker and I put that on our calendar. We were thinking of a December during the winter break to have some uninterrupted time just to really dive in to make a district org chart is what he's talking about, instead of just like a just the district office org chart or with admin, but truly a whole certified org chart. And we're gonna tackle that, have it done by December.
Yeah, just a global one, so we can see who's in what position, who's helping who needs more support. Is there any department that's, I don't want to say overstaffed, but has more? Do we shift those people to help meet some of these targets on there so we don't lose sight of our goals, essentially, is what that is.
Yep, thanks. I just wanted to just make mention too, it's pretty cool looking out in the audience right now. I probably count about 18 people that have worked for the Monticello School District, anywhere from 2 years to 40 years. And I think what we are seeing as far as a district-wide approach goes, and Kathy kind of alluded to it, but I just, I want to emphasize that how proud I am of the people and the relationships that we've been part of for our whole existence in this district. They're amazing relationships. And those relationships, now coupled with the multiple tiered systems of support for students and staff, are going to be the items that push us over the edge and with our kids and with our staff. We're all talking the same language. We're all making sure that that collective approach is unified. And we are some of us have had this goal for several years, and just to feel it going on right now is something that gives me shivers, because I can hear the same language with academics and behavior for the first time, and we're pretty proud. Well, some of you have had that goal too. We're taking huge steps of unification, especially this year. So thank you for your hard work. It's so evident, your knowledge is so deep. Thank you.
I have a question real quick. So you guys talked about the fact that there's some data that you're going to be collecting that maybe you wish you had previously to help make some of these decisions. So I guess my question is, and you had mentioned contact points with students to either advisors or adults. Is there certain measurable areas that you're going to be collecting data and tracking now to see how it impacts student performance?
Just had that conversation this morning because there's research out there that tells us, I believe it's attendance behavior and academics on track for graduation. So we now have, with EduClimber, with all of our Infinite Campus, so we have a lot of data at our discretion. We have to determine which one we're going to prioritize and how we're going to use it and set our own thresholds. And that's exactly where we're at right now, because by the end of quarter one, we want to have that threshold set. We want to be able to know how to prioritize which pieces of data, because every student has data, we just can't manage it all, and then align what we set as our thresholds to what our interventions are going to be. So that's we had that exact conversation in question today and made great gains, and then we're going to come back in a couple of days and say, okay, we've got to start to prioritize and slim it down so that we can start to align it to what do we have at our discretion for resources and staff time and who needs what. We can't serve them all, but we do have to start somewhere, and then we'll monitor for and adjust for quarter two. And
I just think we've made a huge amount of progress in a very short amount of time in being proactive at the high school level and looking at the students that need help and making sure they're staying on track for graduation and stuff. I feel like it's a more formalized process than we've ever had, and I feel really good about it, the direction we're going.
And thank you for saying that. As Matt, it's easy for us to stand here and share kind of our story and our narrative, but the reality is we've got a tremendous staff at the high school that are doing a lot of heavy lift of work on the benefit of half of kids, and we know that. We've got great social workers, school counselors, great teachers, great support staff, and we can sit here and summarize it, but there's a lot of people that are really willing to roll up their sleeves and just dig into it because it's what kids need. So thank you for that, and please know that we're here just representing a hardworking building.
And representing them well, thank you. Next, we're going to hear, we're going to move from high school to elementary school. We're going to hear from our Pinewood principal, Ms. Shelley Gilmore, and assistant principal, Mr. Clay Norman. I believe this is our last of 5 buildings, right? That we've heard goals from everybody, so we saved the best for last. I'm sorry, Matt and Lori.
The pressure. I think Ms. Courteau is not so happy right now, Ms. Sandquist and Mr. Scherber there.
They are a hard act to follow. Good evening, Board Chair Ziebarth and board members and Superintendent Olson. We are pleased to be here to share our goals with you tonight.
Good thing we had iPad training.
Good thing we had
It's gonna pay
iPad
off.
training. I know. See?
It's not the first one, though.
No,
There we
okay,
go.
now we go. There. Perfect. Teamwork. Okay, so we're going to talk about our instructional goals and our vision of a learner goal tonight. So our goal that we hope to achieve by spring of winter 2026 is to have 70% of our students at benchmark in A reading or early reading. And our goal for this year is to increase our score by 3% by the spring of 2024, and then another 3 to 4% next year.
Okay, so here are current numbers. You can see from fall 22 to spring 23 and then to this fall. So we're looking at that down the road 3 years, that 70% overall number, and you can kind of see as the grade levels progress that we get to those numbers. Focusing in on is trying to get some of those younger grade levels there sooner. And supporting that through, well, we'll get to that next, but how we're going to support that.
So we have some student observables, things that we want to see when, or things that students will demonstrate when the goal is met. Right now, we have students engaging in phonics lessons at their own level. We have them, we have title teachers pushing into our classes that have the highest levels of need, and students are flexed, so they're going to different classrooms so their needs can be met effectively. We're also working on making sure that students have increased background knowledge, because studies show that when students have greater amounts of background knowledge, they understand more about vocabulary and have higher levels of comprehension. And then the last observable is that students will become fluent readers, both by having that background knowledge and also by having a greater knowledge of phonics.
And our staff observables, analyzing team data during team time, so that's a weekly meeting where grade level teams are meeting. We're also working on starting to implement more times where our grade level teams can meet with those support people like title staff, like special education staff, so that they're working together and keeping their support groups as flexible as possible throughout the year. So when students are starting to move that bar and making gains, that we are constantly identifying other students that need that support. So Shelley already mentioned Title I teachers pushing in this year. So as you think back to that second slide where we saw some of those numbers, that's not necessarily a spot that we can intervene out with a lot of small groups. So we are doing more of a push-in model. And staff development will be ongoing throughout the year. And so we want our staff to apply that as the year goes on.
Okay. And our vision of a learner goals center around integrity. And we've been doing a lot of work on what it means to be a student of integrity. So our current realities with this is that we've analyzed our quantitative data and our qualitative data, and we determined that integrity really is an important thing for our students to be able to learn. And our students are presenting with more complex behaviors than they ever have in the past, and also a really good reason for our building to choose integrity as a goal.
So what we want to see staff doing, we have a dedicated SEL time every morning to start every day now. Staff are using our district curriculum to teach those lessons, really to teach kids how to regulate. We also have teachers who are not responsible for a classroom are partnering with classrooms. So they are going in and supporting kids during that time as well and getting to build more relationships. I mentioned second step that we're using. Staff are using the word integrity, demonstrating how to make good choices for our students, and integrity be taught throughout the school day. So it's not just a catchphrase that we're using at certain times, but it's part of our daily routine.
When Clay and I are meeting with students that need some reteaching or reminders, we use the words integrity with them and ask them, have you been a person of integrity today? And talking about what they can do in the future if they find themselves in those situations again. So it is fun to be in classrooms and see those supporting adults being able to carry that language all the way in whatever time of the day it is. So our student observables, so this is what we'll see our students do, is students will be able to define integrity. They'll be strong enough to do what they know is right. That can be difficult for adults to do, and we're working on it with our students. We also talk about doing the right thing even though no one is watching. That's another thing that I talk about when I'm working with students that need some correction is we talk about being a person of integrity and how proud their families are when they are working with integrity. And we also talk to them about how their parents understand that students make mistakes. And that's a part of being a person of integrity, making those corrections in our lives to do the right thing. And of course, demonstrating.
All right. We've asked our staff this year to focus a little less on perfection and more on purpose. We have a lot of new. Our dedicated SEL time and really rededicating to that time. Our reading curriculum, our functional phonics curriculum. So there's a lot of new things that they are working through. You can't do all those things immediately perfect. So we want them to continue to grow in their ability to teach those curriculums. Working together to do best for kids. I think we are doing a much better job of that, and I think seeing so much more teamwork this year than I've noticed in the past. Not that they didn't want to, but we're making it a focus. We're giving them those opportunities. Data-based decisions that make positive impacts on student learners. As part of our team time, it's not only academic data, but we want them to talk about how are their kids doing, part of that SEL work as well. Maintaining a healthy work-life balance. We know how important that is, probably in this room more so than a lot of folks do, but we want our teachers to do the same thing. really enjoy each other's time and company. And Pinewood, for a while before my time, was considered the friendliest school in the nation, so we're going to try to see if we can get back to that. So.
We do have additional focus areas that we're working on in addition to our goals of increasing academic achievement in literacy, and then also our raising people of integrity. We want to continue to focus on our MTSS process through academics and also our behavior, social, emotional piece. We want to continue to strengthen our team time, strengthen our staff's ability to work well together and analyze data, making decisions based on the data and knowing what to do next. We are continuing to revamp our intervention programs so we make sure that every student gets what they need. We're continuing to work on the flexing for functional phonics. This is something that's new to us, and really taking a look at the data and our instructional practices and how we can be our best for our kids. SEL time, as Clay said earlier, is a change for us to have in the morning. We want all hands on deck. We want to start our day in a way where people know that, our students know that they are important, that they are cared for, that they are loved, and give them the skills that they need to be healthy, well-adjusted human beings that have much to contribute to society. Inclusion is important to us, so we want to make sure that all students and all teachers are working towards what's best for each individual child. And then, of course, safety is that's at all times.
All right, and just kind of some big picture things, other ideas for later. We'd like a full kitchen remodel. Big ask, I don't think, but no, the reason for it is so we have over 800 students. We have one way to get in, one way to get out. It's a really long process. And just playing around with the schedule a little bit, we think that we could add as much as 45 minutes of instructional time if we figured this out, which would be huge. So kind of down the road idea. We're going to fundraise for expanded playground equipment. We want to create as many leadership opportunities for students as we have. We have a lot of fifth grade helpers now that do a variety of jobs throughout the year, but just trying to increase the opportunities for students. Possibly a math coach. We have definitely made some strides in reading support this year. We don't want to forget about math either. Special education instructional leader is something we've been discussing a little bit with a lot of changes to curriculum recently. And here's some kids.
Kids, the reason why we do what we do. We just want to take the time to thank you for all of your support, and we want to say thank you to the people that we have out in the crowd here. We work with an amazing team of administrators, teachers, of support staff, of families. I'm still pretty new to the Monticello community, and it is an amazing place to be and a great place for kids to learn and grow.
Thank you, Ms. Gilmore and Mr. Norman. I really like your emphasis on integrity. I think that's something we heard loud and clear when we did Vision of a Learner last year across every age group and every parent group. And sometimes, you know, SEL sometimes can be a little scary, the acronyms and all that sort of thing, but I think everybody can agree that integrity is a really important life quality to have. So I'm just really glad to hear carrying all that through the day as you wrap academics around it. So I just want to say thank you for that. Anybody else?
Yeah, I have more of a comment for the future. You talked about the kitchen expansion and capital, and this goes more towards next year, is when we do our capital request. We got quite a few last spring, obviously, but they were kind of shotgunned all over the place, just as we're trying to do a standard format for the trip requests. I think something else we should look at is reviewing our capital request process and see if we can start that earlier, and then more of a standardized format so it's easier for the board to look at everything simultaneously, because some will have a very detailed description done really well, and some will have just a really vague statement. So it's really kind of hard to balance that.
Is it something we can bring to the budget committee?
Tina started it with buildings. Tina and Terry started it 2 weeks ago.
Oh,
All
okay.
buildings, we're probably 2 months ahead of where we're past. That's very important to all the administration, and we're on it. We were right with.
You're good.
Yep.
Trying to get you, that's all.
Thank you.
If I could make one reminder, of course, you knew I was going to do that, right? But just a reminder more to the board, but as I think it was one of Ms. Gilmore's slides, but she talked about staff supports, and I want to make a connection all the way back to July. One of those staff reports is a new BA, is a behavior analyst who's working, starting with our elementaries, but then has gotten into the secondary buildings as well to really work with the administration and looking at the foundational work for behavior expectations. And a lot of schools have behavior analysts for students who are only in special education, and that's where they put those positions. And this is a position for our general education population. And when I say that, please remember that all students are general education, so both students in general ed and special ed. So we've put our dollars to focus on the behavior foundations across the district so that we can move forward with that. So, thank you. I know it's been said many times, but once again, I just am in awe of all administration and the work they did to align the goals across the district. Kathy, Chair Ziebarth said it. I just can't tell you enough how proud I am.
I have a quick question, kind of expanding on what Eric's talking about, because I was curious about that piece too, but you mentioned early on in the slides the increased and complex behaviors that you're seeing. How are you combating that? What's working? What do you still need help with?
That's a great question. We have a behavior intervention team that is really very solid, and we're using evidence-based, research-based interventions for students that have those behavioral challenges. So we put the intervention in place, we're collecting the data, we're determining whether the intervention is working, we're doing fidelity checks with the teacher. And so we've got a great process in place. We have our district behavior analyst that Eric was just talking about attending our meetings. And so if we have challenging situations, we're able to reach out to her and say, okay, we've done this, this, and this. What do you suggest we try next? So we've got good systems in place to be able to look at those and to be able to address those as they come up.
I think we have to remember that with our youngest learners, we all turn the news on and hear that the kids are having a hard time nationwide. For the youngest kids, their youngest childhood years were substantially interrupted with the COVID pandemic. And so I think we're trying really hard to steer those kids back to help them gain skills and strategies faster, so that they can get back on track to where we were. But I don't think our problems that we have are unique in any way. But I do think the strategies that we're using to work on them are somewhat unique. As you mentioned, considering using funded positions a little bit differently. So I'm really proud that we're able to step outside the box and think of different strategies for that as well. So thank you guys for a great presentation. Anyone else? So our next Monticello School Board meeting will take place at 5 p.m. on Monday, November the 6th. And hearing no further discussion, we are ready for a motion for adjournment.
Good.
By Jeff Hegle, seconded by Casey Root. All those in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say no. We're adjourned at 7:37 p.m., 6-0. Thank you.